Its story doesn't start under sunlight, drifting through weeds, or patrolling riverbeds. It begins under fluorescent lights behind closed doors, in breeding rooms built not for ecosystems, but for experiments. And before we go deeper, if this is your first time here, understand something. Dark Cichlids is not a channel about pets or beginner tips. It is a place where we decode instincts, translate old hobby wisdom, and reveal the hidden rules shaping every creature behind the glass. Here, knowledge isn't passed down as rumors. It becomes story, structure, and truth. So stay with me, because once you see what this fish truly is, everything else, its behavior, its limits, its charm, will finally make sense. And here is the first truth most people never hear. The parrot is not a species. It is a collision, a deliberate crossing of two Central American titans, the Midas Cichlid and the Vieja bloodline. Two giants with skulls built for crushing, jaws built for dominance, and bodies sculpted by violent competition. Someone, decades ago, looked at these two and asked a question nature never dared to answer. What happens if we merge them? The answer arrived in a round, glowing orange body that moved like a cartoon but carried the biological tension of two evolutionary worlds forced into one. They called it the Blood Parrot. The name stuck. The controversy never left. Look at one closely. Really closely. Forget the color. Forget the smile. See the bones beneath the illusion, the compressed skull, the shortened face, the jaw hinge rotated backward like a misaligned door, the mouth opening vertically instead of horizontally, too small, too narrow, too stiff. Behind that tiny slit sit the real teeth, the pharyngeal crushers deep in the throat, inherited from ancestors who built their lives around violence. But the parrot cannot use them the way those ancestors did. The mouth it was given can barely aim. And every time a parrot eats, you are watching a creature negotiating with the shape someone else decided for it. It lines up its entire body with a pellet. It lunges, it scoops, it misses, it tries again. It works harder in one feeding than most fish work in a day. And yet somehow it survives. It adapts. It becomes clever. It uses currents. It memorizes angles. It learns your timing. It evolves inside the glass box, shaping new behavior around limitations it never chose. But the real twist is this. While you're watching the parrot is watching you. It follows your steps. It begs at the glass. It interacts like a small wet dog. It charms beginners in seconds. It disarms experienced keepers in minutes. And here is the quiet truth no one says out loud. You don't fall in love with a parrot because of biology. You fall in love because its shape hijacks your instincts. Big eyes, round face, small mouth, slow movements. These features trigger the baby schema effect, an ancient neurological shortcut that whispers, protect this. This isn't manipulation. It's psychology. It's biology working on you. And that is why the parrot spread across the world faster than any ethical debate could keep up. But charm has a cost. And the deeper you look, the higher that cost becomes. Because behind every healthy parrot you see lie the dozens you never will. Hybrids aren't born equal. Some fry hatch with twisted spines, some with collapsed jaws, some with eyes set too far apart. Some can't swim upward, some can't swim downward. Some spin in circles, trapped in their own buoyancy. And this is the part most people never think about. They don't reach shops, they don't reach tanks. They vanish quietly, removed from the production line like defective products. Except these products are living creatures created for novelty. But make no mistake, many breeders are ethical. Many refuse dyeing, refuse surgery, refuse extreme line breeding. Many focus on health, stability, and strong genetics. The darkness of the hybrid industry doesn't define the entire industry, but it defines enough of it that the parrot swims forever with a shadow behind its smile. And yet, even in that shadow, the parrot remains innocent. It didn't choose to be invented. It didn't choose its body. It simply wakes up in the shape we gave it and lives the best life it can inside the boundaries we built, which means this story is no longer about the parrot. It's about us. And before this story ends, you'll have to decide whether you're part of the problem or part of the correction. Dominance in the wild is simple: teeth, speed, intimidation, precision. But the parrot's mouth can't lock. Its face can't angle sharply. Its bite pressure is a fraction of what its ancestors commanded. So what happens when a creature built for war is born without a weapon? It invents new ones. A parrot doesn't dominate through violence. It dominates through geometry. It blocks rivals. It occupies space like a moving wall. It angles its body to trap weaker fish into corners. It uses persistence instead of pain, pressure instead of wounds. This is aggression rewritten by limitation, dominance redesigned by biology. But limitations don't disappear. They migrate. Put a parrot with anything too sharp, too fast, too natural, and weakness reveals itself instantly. Convicts outmaneuver it. Firemouths outdisplay it. Texas cichlids outbite it. Jack Dempsey's outspeed it. Flowerhorns outthink it. The parrot becomes a target, not because it's fragile, but because it's outclassed in the one arena its ancestors mastered: combat. And when a creature bred for charisma meets a creature bred for survival, charisma loses. But here is where the parrot surprises everyone. It does not collapse. It adapts again. It changes its schedule. It eats when dominant fish rest. It swims in arcs instead of straight lines to reduce collisions. It chooses middle zones where predators rarely linger. It becomes a strategist in a world where instincts fail. And that adaptability is why the parrot can live a decade or more if kept correctly. But survival isn't just about tank mates. It's about architecture. Because the parrot doesn't come from a river with rules. It comes from hybrid geometry. So its home must be engineered, not replicated. Smooth substrate so the mouth doesn't tear. Soft corners so the rounded body doesn't bruise. Broken sight lines to reduce ambush angles. Shelters deep enough to hide stress, but wide enough for the body to turn. And here comes the truth beginners miss. For a single adult parrot, think in terms of at least a 40 to 55 gallon tank. Not a bowl, not a starter kit. Strong filtration because every meal becomes a cloud of half-chewed fragments. Strong aeration because the compressed skull sometimes limits gill efficiency. Stable heat, 24 to 27 degrees Celsius, because sudden drops slam their breathing. Sudden rises accelerate stress hormones, and filtration must be paired with regular large water changes because no filter can undo hybrid clumsiness. And then there is food: small pellets, soft pellets, sinking pellets. Not the oversized high-protein chunks their ancestors handled easily. The parrot's digestive system is a compromise, caught between two carnivorous lineages, but unable to shred what they shredded. Feed it like a Midas and you risk bloat. Feed it like a severum and it thrives. Add spirulina for digestion. Avoid heavy animal proteins. These details matter because the parrot lives inside a body designed by chance, not perfected by evolution. And now the most emotionally complex layer: breeding. The instinct remains, the ritual remains, the desire remains. But biology does not cooperate. The male displays, the female responds. The stone is cleaned, the eggs are laid, the male tries, the male fails. Again and again and again. Not by choice, not by inexperience, but by the broken mathematics of hybrid meiosis. Their bodies can imitate nature, their genes cannot complete it. Yet on rare occasions, rare like lightning striking twice, fertile males appear, and from them arise second-generation hybrids: parrot cross Texas, parrot cross convict, parrot cross severum. Some stunning, some unstable, some monstrous, and in the wrong hands, exploited, dyed, injected, deformed, sold under names that hide their origins, sold to people who never learned the truth behind the smile. And here lies the paradox. The parrot was not shaped by evolution, but it behaves more sincerely than half the natural species in the hobby. That is the paradox of the parrot. And the darkest part of this story isn't written in its genes. It's written in our choices. So now we arrive at the hardest part, the part no store teaches, no beginner expects, and no marketing brochure dares to mention. The Parrot Cichlid is not a species. It is a decision made by breeders who shaped a body they would never swim inside. A decision continued by sellers who present a smile without explaining the structure behind it. A decision completed by keepers who inherit a life designed by hands they will never meet. And every parrot that swims today is living proof that humans have the power to create life, long before they learn how to protect it. So what is the parrot really? A victim of our curiosity? A masterpiece of hybrid design? A mistake with a smile? Or a mirror reflecting everything we love and everything we avoid about this hobby? Because the parrot forces you to confront questions no wild fish ever will. When you keep a natural species, you inherit nature's blueprint. When you keep a parrot, you inherit our own. And that means every flaw, every compromise, every limitation is a reflection of the choices we made, not the choices the fish made. If we create a creature that cannot survive without our structure, does that structure become our responsibility? If we design a mouth that cannot bite, cannot tear, cannot feed efficiently, do we also design the environment that compensates for it? If we stabilize color through selective breeding, do we also stabilize the stress that color hides? And if we choose to keep this fish, if we choose to place it inside glass walls, can we admire the beauty without acknowledging the cost behind it? These questions are uncomfortable because they reveal a truth hobbyists rarely confront. When we create life, we also create its struggles. Hybrid fish don't suffer because they are weak. Hybrid fish suffer because their bodies are forced to negotiate with blueprints written by two different histories. A natural species grows into its shape. A parrot grows around its shape. And yet, despite everything, despite the biological contradictions, the skeletal compromises, the feeding challenges, this fish does something extraordinary. It still tries. It still adapts. It still connects with the world around it. It greets you. It studies you. It learns your patterns. It becomes a presence in the room, not just a body in the water. The parrot can live well, very well, a decade or more if kept correctly. It can bond with you in ways most natural species never will. It can watch you move through the room, track you with its eyes, beg for food not out of instinct, but out of recognition. And that is what turns the ethical debate into something far more complicated. The parrot is not a monster. It is not a joke. It is not a failure of evolution. It is a creature that exists because we made it exist, yet behaves with more sincerity than half the fish shaped by nature. But sincerity isn't immunity, and innocence isn't protection. If we are going to shape life, then we must shape the environment that life depends on. Clear water, generous space, food it can actually consume, tank mates it can actually coexist with, conditions that do not punish the body, but support it. Attention, not assumption. Care, not convenience. Because the story of the Parrot Cichlid isn't just about what we created. It's about what we choose to do next. And before you decide how you feel about this fish, there is something else you need to understand. Something that expands this story far beyond the orange body you see in shops. The parrot you know is only one version. One branch of a tree that didn't exist until we planted it. There are others. Variants shaped by selective pressure, colors shaped by mutation, behaviors shaped by unintended consequences. Entire lines that behave differently, grow differently, and break differently. Hidden worlds of variation where beauty and instability rise together. And that is where our story turns darker. Because if the parrot itself is controversial, the variants built from it are something else entirely. If you think this tale ends here, it doesn't. This is not a conclusion. It's an introduction to everything we haven't explored yet. So stay with me. The next chapter begins in the places where color becomes conflict, where rarity becomes risk, and where the search for perfection creates shapes nature never intended. What if I told you the parrot you see in stores, the bright orange smile, the round cartoon body, the gentle movements, is only the beginning of a much stranger family tree? A tree that grows not through evolution, but through experimentation. A tree where branches split not because nature demanded it, but because breeders did. Because once the first parrot appeared, a question echoed quietly through the industry. If we can create this, what else can we create? And that single question opened a doorway into a world of colors, shapes, and lines that look beautiful at first glance, but whisper complications when viewed closely. Take the platinum parrot, pure white, radiant, almost glowing under aquarium lights. But that glow doesn't come from purity, it comes from absence. An absence of pigment, an absence of melanin, an absence that often arrives hand in hand with weaker fins, slower responses, and higher stress sensitivity. Beauty created by taking something away. Then there is the snow white parrot, the one beginner's mistake for an angelic mutation. But many of these fish weren't born white. They were selected, refined, stripped of pigment generation after generation until color collapsed into a ghost of what once was. And some were never white at all. Some were chemically altered, bleached, conditioned to display tones they were never built to keep. A beautiful illusion with a dangerous price. Look deeper into the variant maze and you find the King Kong parrot, a heavier, thicker, more confident, line-bred descendant, its body pushing outward, trying to reclaim the jaw strength its ancestors once had. Some King Kongs can open their mouths wider, some cannot. Some grow thick heads reminiscent of their Midas ancestors. Others grow unstable bones that fail under their own weight. Two fish that look identical, one healthy, one fragile, both sold under the same name. And then comes the polar parrot, a hybrid of a hybrid, carrying traces of flowerhorn aggression, parrot moldability, and selective refinements layered over refinements. A fish not defined by evolution, but by escalation. It moves differently, reacts differently, thinks differently. It is a creature built through generations of human ambition, each layer rewriting the one before it. And here lies the paradox. As the colors become rarer, the lines become weaker. As the shapes become more extreme, the bodies become less stable. As the fish become more desirable, the genetics become more compromised. Beauty increases, integrity decreases, demand rises, stability falls. A loop that continues as long as hobbyists chase rarity without asking what rarity costs the fish itself. But the real twist is this. None of these variants chose to exist. They were shaped, selected, refined, adjusted, sometimes carefully, sometimes recklessly, by people who wanted new forms of beauty inside glass boxes. And now those forms exist. They swim, they breathe, they struggle, they adapt. They survive inside bodies built like puzzles, pieces that don't always fit but must be carried anyway. And this is where the story deepens. Because if variants already stretch the limits of what this hybrid can be, what happens when we follow the body itself into the places where its biology begins to break? If color creates wonder, structure creates warning. And the warnings begin not in the pigment, but in the flesh. Every healthy parrot you have ever seen, every bright, round, eager little creature greeting you at the front of a tank, stands on top of a truth most hobbyists will never witness. Because hybrids don't just create new possibilities, they create new failures. And failures do not swim under bright lights, they do not greet customers, they do not become Instagram posts. They disappear long before anyone even knows they existed. When nature designs a species, it sculpts the body slowly, eliminating weaknesses generation after generation. When humans design a hybrid, the body is forced to assemble itself from pieces that evolve separately. And sometimes those pieces refuse to cooperate. Some fry hatch with spines twisted like dried roots, bending under the weight of a skeleton that never learned how to form correctly. Some hatch with their swim bladders misaligned, their bodies trapped in a vertical tilt, rising when they should sink, sinking when they should rise, fighting gravity in a world meant for buoyancy. Some hatch with mouths too small to open, jaws fused or angled too sharply to grasp anything, condemned to starvation while still surrounded by food. Some hatch with eyes set too far apart, too close together, or too high on the skull to judge distance. A biological glitch created when two blueprints overlap without merging cleanly. Some spin, some fall, some float with no control at all. Some simply stop moving, not because they lack will, but because their architecture betrayed them before life even started. And here comes the darkest part. These fry don't make it to shops. They don't make it to hobbyists. Their struggles never become stories. They vanish quietly, culled, removed, discarded, wrapped in silence by the same system that created them. They are the invisible currency of hybrid creation, the unseen cost behind every bright parrot that survives. For every smiling stable parrot you see, there may have been 3 others that never reached your glass. And that ratio grows sharper in variant lines, platinum, polar, King Kong, where chasing rarity often means chasing instability. But don't fall into the false belief that all breeders are careless. Many are not. Some fight for healthier lines. Some stabilize deformities over generations. Some refuse dying, refuse surgery, refuse extreme selection, choosing instead to protect the hybrid they helped create. These are the keepers of integrity, the ones who choose responsibility over profit. But the industry is wide, and where there is demand for colors nature never made, there will always be someone willing to bend biology further than biology was meant to bend. This is the cost of invention. Not an ethical debate, not a philosophical abstraction, a physical cost, paid in bone and muscle, paid in fry that never swim upright, paid in lives shaped by mismatched blueprints. And yet within this darkness, a question emerges, one that shifts the story again. If the failures happen before we ever see them, what happens inside the bodies of the parrots that do survive? Because a hybrid doesn't just carry the cost of the ones that didn't make it. Sometimes it carries those contradictions inside itself. Every day, every breath, every instinct. And to understand the parrot fully, we must follow that contradiction into a deeper place. A place where survival becomes a labyrinth, where biology becomes a negotiation, where the fish you see is only half the story. A wild fish fights the world around it. A parrot fights the world inside it. Because when 2 evolutionary histories collide inside a single skeleton, the body becomes a negotiation, one that must be repeated every hour of every day for as long as the fish lives. This is the part few keepers ever see, the constant, quiet struggle written into the parrot's architecture. Start with movement. Most fish glide because their bodies were refined by millions of years of balance. The parrot glides because it refuses to surrender to imbalance. The compressed skull shifts its center of gravity upward. The shortened spine redistributes weight unevenly. The swim bladder, caught between 2 inherited blueprints, often sits at an angle nature never intended. So some parrots hover crookedly, some rise too easily, some sink too fast, some develop a rhythmic tilt, a subtle sway that only becomes obvious when the lights dim and the water calms. These aren't diseases, these are compromises. And compromises don't end with movement, they begin there. Now look at the mouth. The mouth is the parrot's lifelong puzzle. Too narrow, too vertical, too stiff. And behind that tiny opening sit powerful pharyngeal crushers inherited from ancestors that use them with precision. But the parrot cannot aim the way those ancestors did. It cannot lock its jaw, it cannot tear, it cannot bite accurately. So every meal becomes a test. A pellet drops. The parrot lines up its whole body, calculates distance with eyes set wider apart than function demands, and lunges. Not with confidence, but with hope. It misses, it adjusts, it tries again. It works harder in one feeding than a predator works all day. This is not clumsiness. This is adaptation forced upon design. The digestive system follows the same logic. Two carnivorous lineages converge into a fish with a herbivore-sized mouth and omnivore-sized needs. High protein swells the gut. Hard foods strain the crushers. Fatty foods overwhelm the system. Even beneficial snacks like shrimp or worms can trigger buoyancy imbalance in individuals whose swim bladder alignment is more sensitive than others. The body becomes a labyrinth where every tunnel leads to another compromise. And then comes oxygen. The compressed skull doesn't just shape the face, it shapes the gills. Shorter operculum plates mean less efficient expansion. Less expansion means less oxygen drawn in per breath. That's why some parrots breathe harder after a moderate chase. Why some show rapid gill movement under mild stress. Why a slight drop in temperature or oxygen can overwhelm them faster than their ancestors ever experienced. But here lies the paradox that defines this fish. Despite all these internal negotiations, the parrot survives. Not because it is strong in the traditional sense, but because it is adaptable in a way few hybrids are. It learns, it compensates, it memorizes the tank, it chooses calmer areas, it uses currents to stabilize itself, it modifies its feeding strategy. It becomes an engineer inside a body that never fully agreed with itself. And yet, even for the survivors, there are limits no adaptation can erase. The limits are structural, they are inherited, they are unavoidable. And as the hobby pushes deeper into variant lines, platinum, polar, King Kong, those limits sharpen. Some lines develop head growth that outpaces internal support. Some show increasing rates of buoyancy problems as pigment mutations compound. Some behave differently because slight shifts in skull shape alter pressure perception, sight angles, or reflex timing. These aren't random quirks. These are the biological consequences of crossing histories that were never meant to merge. But the real question isn't why these contradictions exist. The real question is this: what happens next? Because the parrot is only the beginning. It is the blueprint for a new era of hybrids. Some healthier, some riskier, some stranger than anything the hobby has seen before. And to understand where this story is going, we must look beyond the individual fish, beyond the variants, beyond the health maze. We must look at the future of hybridization, the future of ethics, the future of the hobby itself. The parrot isn't the end of the conversation, it is the opening chapter, and everything that comes after will be shaped by the same hands that shaped it. Hybrids don't end with the parrot, they begin with it. Because once a single species is created by human hands, the doors that were once sealed by evolution swing open. And what comes through those doors depends entirely on us. The parrot was the first wave, the experiment that proved something unsettling. If you blend lineages with precision and pressure, you can create a creature that nature never asked for, yet still manages to live, adapt, bond, and survive. But the moment that truth became known, the hybrid landscape began to shift. Quietly, rapidly, irreversibly. Today, the parrot sits at the center of a growing network of hybrid lines. Some controlled, some accidental, some driven by ambition, others driven by curiosity. Look at the flowerhorn, a deliberate fusion of Central American cichlids built for color, aggression, and head structure. Yet many strains gain their emotional intelligence and responsiveness from parrot ancestry woven into their early development. Look at the polar parrot, a hybrid of a hybrid, a recursive creation, a blueprint that rewrites itself every generation, sometimes producing stability, sometimes producing unpredictability so profound, it behaves like a species still searching for its identity. Look at the King Kong parrot, the line that tries, generation after generation, to reclaim the jaw strength its ancestors lost. Proof that even within hybrids, evolution attempts to correct what design disrupted. And look at the new trends emerging in quiet corners of the hobby. Faint rumors of ghost parrots, short-body platinums, super red kings, each one created not by natural selection, but by selective pressure applied again and again over compressed timelines. But this is where the future becomes dangerous. Natural evolution removes what cannot function. Human-driven evolution preserves what can be sold. Nature asks, will this survive? The market asks, will someone buy this? And hybrids, caught between those two forces, become vessels for human desire rather than expressions of ecological purpose. If the future continues down this path, we may see hybrids that glow brighter, swim slower, struggle more, and depend entirely on human-controlled environments just to maintain the bare minimum of comfort. Or the future may unfold differently. We may learn, we may refine, we may stabilize lines instead of deforming them. We may breed for health first, color second. We may focus on improving the architecture of the parrot, opening the mouth incrementally, strengthening the spine, correcting alignment issues, using selection not to exaggerate traits, but to restore what hybridization disrupted. And in that alternate future, the parrot could become the blueprint for something revolutionary, a hybrid that is not just beautiful, but functional, not just colorful, but resilient, not just loved, but understood. But the shape of that future will never be decided in laboratories or breeding farms alone. It will be decided in living rooms, fish rooms, local shops, online communities. It will be decided by the keepers who choose what to support and what to walk away from. Because every purchase is a vote. Every tank is a stage where ethics become action. Every hybrid that survives does so because someone, somewhere, decided that keeping it alive matters. The Parrot Cichlid did not choose to exist, but we choose what its existence becomes. The question now is not, what will breeders create next? The real question is, what will we allow to continue? Because the future of the hybrid is not written in genes, it's written in choices. And choices always lead to consequences, beautiful ones or irreversible ones. And that brings us full circle, back to the fish that started this entire story. The parrot, the smile, the skeleton, the contradiction, the mirror. Because here on Dark Cichlids, we don't just keep fish, we examine the worlds they come from, the mistakes that built them, the choices that shaped them, and the truth swimming beneath every story. The Parrot Cichlid is not natural, but the relationship you build with it is. Now tell me, when you look at a parrot, what do you see? A victim? A favorite? A mistake? A mirror? Your answer is the final chapter, and the next story might already be swimming in your tank. If you want to dive deeper into these hidden worlds, stay with Dark Cichlids, where we dissect the truth behind every beautiful lie in the hobby. See you in the next one.